Damn, looks like I got a flat front. Yep, flat as a tack. So now I'm going to show you how to change a tyre when you're out on the track. First of all, you can just get your bike off the main path in case someone else or another group's coming through. And what we need to do is have a look for either a rock or a log, something like that to get the wheel off the ground. If you can't find anything, sometimes you can't, you've got a side stand on your bike, you should be riding with mates. So what you can do, you can get your mates to either hold your bike while you pull your wheel out, do it this way for a front wheel and that way for a back wheel. So there's always going to be something you can do. So it's just easier for everybody if you can find a rock or a log to put your bike on. So I've just got it off the main trail. I have to go see if we can find something. And if we can't, have to wait for one of my mates to come along. Okay, so we're just having a little look around. This is an example of a rock you could use to elevate your bike. Not sure if it's quite high enough, this one. But there's a couple of other rocks over there. Or we'll find a tree down somewhere and stick it on. Okay, here's another example of something we could use. There's a tree that's fallen down, partly fallen down, it's dead. So just do a wheelie in between here and get that front wheel off the ground. You know, the back will sit down here and the front will hang over the back there and you'll be able to work on it. Okay, I just chose this rock because it looked high enough. It looked like it was going to be stable enough. And I'm lucky enough to have both wheels off the ground. Okay, now that I've got the bike propped up and it's secure, I'm happy to change that tyre there. Go to our tools for the front wheel. On this bike we need the 22mm spanner, 10mm socket to undo the pinch bolts, valve key remover just to remove the valve, make sure all the air comes out while I'm changing the tyre. We have the tyre inflator with the CO2 bottles and the spare tube. I've also got a few rags with me, so we're going to lay that out over in a smoother spot over there, which is just some dirt, rather than try and change the tyre on the rocks here. The reason I've got the rag, I'm going to lay the rag down, put the wheel on that, and that'll just keep any foreign matter out of the wheel bearings while I'm changing the tube. So I've just undone the 22mm nut and the 2 pinch bolts on the disc side. I'm going to loosen off these 2 pinch bolts here to push the axle out. Little tip is just using your 10mm socket, just push your axle through. That'll just help get it out if it's a little bit stuck. Okay, I've got the wheel out. Sit your axle back in there, stop it rolling around the dirt and gathering anything you don't want it to. Just take your wheel spacers out and just wrap them in one of your other rags just to keep everything out, or you can just slip them back on the axle. That way you know where they are. Okay, so now we just grab the tools required to change the tube. I'm going to head over there where it's a little bit flatter and there's no rocks around. Okay, I found my spot. Just lay the rag down. The best thing to do is make sure the bead's broken. Usually when you ride on a flat tyre though, the bead is broken. So that's handy. Undo our rim lock. Make sure you break the bead once you've undone your rim lock. We're just going to undo the valve. And we're going to take our valve out. some people like to use really big tie levers. There's really no need for it. As long as you've got thin ones here, you can get thinner ones. Metz will do a really good one that's thinner here and it's alloy. These are just the ones that I carry with me. If I was changing at home, I'd use my Metzler ones. Just simply just pop the tube out, put your tie lever underneath the disc to hold it, stop it flicking up in your face. I've started at the rim lock, and I've done that because once you get the tyre over the rim lock, the rest of the bead will fall down. If you start opposite the rim lock's going to hold the tyre up. It's going to be a little bit harder to pull it over. As you can see, these tie levers make it look pretty easy. And the other secret is not to take too big a bite. You know, if you're pulling it, you know, from a long distance, you got to put more effort in when you're starting. So just make them nice and close when you start. Once you get it half off, obviously you can go bigger bites. Same as when you're putting the tyre back on. Don't try and take too much in one hit because it just doesn't work. Okay, so now we've got the top part of the tyre off. I just put my foot on the middle of the wheel, lift it up. It gives you plenty of room that way. Pull the tube out. You know, if you don't have a spare tube with you, that's why in my backpack I've also got a puncture repair kit. You know, it only takes 5 to 10 minutes for the glue to go off. Once you've cleaned it up and done it properly, usually you're pretty safe to put it back in and get going again. So that's why I take both, just in case I get more than 2 flats. Before I put a tube in, let's make sure that that nut is nipped up. Sometimes they work loose while you've been carrying them around. I also put a little bit of air in the tube, just so that when you put it in, you're not going to crease the tube. If you put the tube in and it goes in and it's creased, it will rub on itself and you'll get a flat pretty quick. So always take the valve out. Just put a bit of air in it, it's about that much, just so that the tube has its shape. Put the valve back in. There's many different techniques, and you learn a new one all the time when you go riding with a bunch of guys, different guys. Different techniques of putting the tube in. Some will put the tube in first and then put the valve in. Some will put the valve in first and then put the tube on. Some will lever the tyre over the other way so that they would get a lever like this, pass it through this side. This one's proving a little difficult. They would pass it through like that, then pull the tyre right over. Passing gives you easy access. I watched a bloke do this once and I pretty much do it this way all the time now. So that's really easy to put in. Just get your tyre lever back out. Just put one of your valve nuts back on. Right, once again stand in the middle, then grab the tyre and just pull it up over the tube, and then just tuck your tube in. Obviously it's a bit harder on the rear, but as long as you make sure that your bead's in properly on the opposite side, it's generally easily done. See, that way I haven't had to struggle. My valve stem's nice and straight because I've done it that way. Okay, so there's 2 places you can start. There's no right or wrong way, it's just your own technique and what works easier for you. I always like to start at the valve when I'm in the bush and finish on the rim lock. It just makes it a little easier because the rim lock isn't stealing your space while you're trying to get the tyre on. Just get it close to the rim lock. Put your foot on it. And when you flick it over, just make sure you got your bead down so it's giving you plenty of room to pull across this side. It makes it a little bit easier. If you keep your foot on the tyre like this, it stops the tyre walking back off. Just keep a little pressure on it. As you can see, as I'm getting closer to the end, I'm not taking big bites. Like I spoke about earlier, just little bites, and then it's quite easy. And when you get close to the end, just put both of them in because it gets a little bit hard to get your lever in for the last bit. And then just give your tyre a little push around, make sure it looks even. Because if it's all sitting on one side and you pump it up, you're going to have trouble getting the bead out. If you're stuck out in the bush, you're probably not going to worry about that too much. You just want to get back on your bike and keep riding with your mates. Okay, I do this valve nut up tight, and that just keeps it straight while the air's going into it. So if it has moved slightly while you've been fitting the tyre, it will pull it straight and the tube will sort itself out where it needs to go to stay straight. And then once you've pumped it up, obviously then I loosen the nut off so it can walk around a little bit without damaging anything. Okay, I've fitted the CO2 bottle. Now it's just a matter of letting the air in. And up we go. This, as I say, the small ones put around about 18 psi in, which is a little bit more than what you want, but you know, you're not going to get any more flats. Okay, tyre's pumped up, it's holding air, which is great. I backed off the lock nut here, and that's so if the tyre spins, it can pull the valve in with it a little bit before it tears out of the tube. If you leave it tight and your tyre walks on the rim a little bit, you can pull the tube and then just tear it out of the fitting, and then you get a flat straight away. So that's the reason why I undo that. And then when you finish, make sure you pick up all your rubbish and take it with you. So before you put your tyre lever away, just make it easy on yourself. Just put it in here to spread your brake pads so it's easy to get your disc in. Use your rag that you had, clean up your axle and your wheel spacers and put it in. And then there is a tightening sequence to do, just keep your forks nice and straight so you don't wear out your bushes and seals. And I'll run you through that. Tighten up your axle nut first. Do up the pinch bolts on this side. Okay, and while these ones are loose, just pump up your front brake because we spread those pads, remember? So once the front brake's back, just grab the front brake on, stick your leg down, pull your forks up and down a few times. Okay, and what that does is that just aligns this fork leg on that axle where the pinch bolts clamp it, so keep that in line. If it's not in line and it's bent as the forks go down, wears the bushes out, makes your suspension harsh as well. Okay, everybody has their own different technique in changing tyres. That's just the way that I do it. If you don't have a technique, give that one a try.